is the 5:30 kickoff Wolves against Liverpool at Molineux. Another team who have been completely unconvincing to start the campaign is Wolves. They've got four draws and one loss. The way in which they've lost their games as well has been really disappointing, I would say. If we think back to the last two league games, they took the lead, sat back, and just sort of lost all attacking impotence, and it worked massively to their detriment. I'm not sure why they would sort of do that, and they just sort of conceded late, went out with a whimper, really. Um, it's been three consecutive losses in all competitions for them, considering they lost to Brighton in between the two league games. So I can't imagine they're too full of confidence with this game. Um, Liverpool, on the other hand, have bounced back strongly after their defeat to Forest at home. They put together a dominating performance against AC Milan in the Champions League before a 3-0 win over Bournemouth, which saw Darwin Núñez obviously mark his first league start with a fantastic goal. Um, Bournemouth, I think, notably were able to find a lot of success. They had 19 shots, I believe, forced Kelleher into seven saves, which suggests that the scoreline maybe doesn't tell the full story. Um, and Liverpool weren't as watertight as the 3-0 score suggests. On the injury report, for Wolves, they are likely to be without Mosquera, who is a potential ACL victim, which likely rules him out for the season, which means we could see a defensive partnership of Craig Dawson and Santiago Bueno, which is not ideal at all for Gary O'Neill. For Liverpool, no real changes. Um, Harvey Elliott remains sort of long-term absentee with a foot injury, while Alisson is also likely to remain out for this game. But Liverpool have more than capable sort of replacement in Kelleher, so that's not really a massive worry for them. Main angle for me in this game is for Andre of Wolves to draw two fouls, which is priced at 2.0 with paddy power. So Andre got his first start for Wolves against Newcastle, in which he drew two fouls in a 77-minute appearance before being withdrawn with what looked like fatigue. Then he was rewarded with a start against Villa, in which he drew four fouls in a more stable role as a defensive midfielder. So we had Lamina and João Gomez in front of him. He played defensive midfielder and played the entire 90. Again, I thought he looked really good so far. I think he's looked confident, settled in nicely. So we could be looking at another 90-minute performance here. In terms of his fouls drawn, he's obviously drawn an average of three fouls per game in the league so far, which is decent, but it's a very small sample size to go off. So if we look back to his time at Fluminense, in the 2024 season, he had 2.2 fouls drawn per 90, which again, really solid. Over the course of his career, he's averaging 1.8 fouls drawn per 90, of course, in a different league for most of it, but still pretty big numbers, which is even more interesting when you consider there's been an uptick in sort of recent years. I think more than that, he draws an ideal matchup against the Liverpool midfield. Obviously, the one constant from Klopp to Arne Slot has been the sort of high pressing nature of which Liverpool play, and a lot of their fouls are concentrated in midfield. Um, Szoboszlai, Gravenberch, and McAllister all expected to start against Wolves, who are the sort of main contributors and have registered the most fouls for Liverpool so far, which is really good considering they all sort of occupy a very similar zone to Andre in this game. So, as I say, 2.0 looks really good based on that. Data looks good, matchup looks good, and this same bet is 1.5 with Sky. So, I think that's again suggestive of good value. Angle two is for Trent to make two or more tackles. Um, not not a bet that was particularly uh, common last season, considering obviously Trent is a right back. But we've seen a slight shift in his role under Arne Slot, and it's basically him playing a bit more defensively, which has worked to his sort of detriment going forward. But it has led to an uptick in tackles. So he blanked against Ipswich from tackles, zero tackles in the first game of the league. But since then, he's made two tackles against Brentford, three against United, four against Forest, three against AC Milan, and four against Bournemouth. So hitting at least two tackles pretty comfortably, um, which makes a sort of 2.0 price for two tackles on Bet365 look very good value. Um, Obviously, he hasn't played the full 90 in four of those games, but there's a chance he actually gets at this game because Connor Bradley, who has been his replacement, played the full 90 against West Ham midweek. So and Trent didn't play at all. So we could see Trent with the full 90 here, which would obviously be ideal. When he has played the full 90 this season, he's hit four tackles against Forest, four tackles against Bournemouth. So obviously that looks quite good. Again, to mention the matchup against Wolves, I think it looks really good. Um, Opposition right backs have made at least two tackles in 5 out of 6 games so far against Premier League opponents. The only person to fail was Ben White, so obviously not a player who has a ridiculously high average of tackles. We're likely to see Velegard play on the left wing in this game. Um, but it's more than just like a player to player matchup. I think with the way Wolves play, we obviously see Aït get forward quite a lot. We also see Matheus Cunha drift over to the left at times as well. He sort of biases his play to the left. So we should see Trent find duels against those three players: Cunha, Bellegarde, Aït, and all three are really good for tackles in my opinion because they are players who often dribble with the ball. They sort of look to beat their man, and in turn have quite good dispossessed data. And that sort of led to how opposition right backs have been registering tackles against Wolves. So again, it's a good matchup. It's landed in 5 straight games, and it's priced at evens. It's as short as 1.44 with Sky. So again, I think that's really good value. If Trent can get the 90, really good chance he makes at least two tackles in this game. Moving on to a couple of leans. Those two are the bets that I've really liked this game. I've got a few more sort of potential angles that maybe need a bit more looking into, maybe to consider some more disconfirming evidence before going for them. But I also really like Gravenberch and McAllister fouls, which sort of is linked to the Andre fouls drawn. Obviously, I mentioned Liverpool are committing the majority of their fouls in midfield with their high press, and it's these two players that have been the main contributors in the double pivot. I think with the way Liverpool press as well, it's sort of they sort of filter play out wide for the opponent to sort of trap themselves and then find a duel with either McAllister or Gravenberch, two players who are very adept at winning the ball back and very strong in duels. So, as with last season, we see these two players in a lot of physical battles. And I think when you're against players that Wolves have, namely Matheus Cunha, as mentioned, Andre, João Gomez, Bellegarde, they're all very technical players, good at dribbling, and I think naturally will draw fouls, especially with the way Wolves play, in the sense that they'll likely sit deep and then look to progress the ball through carries as opposed to like a long ball. If we look into, if we look a bit deeper into the fouls drawn data from Gravenberch and McAllister so far, we've seen both players have made at least one foul in every game, and McAllister has made two fouls or more in 3 out of 6 in all competitions. Gravenberch also in 3 out of 6 in all competitions. So looks decent on the surface. I think the matchup against Wolves is probably slightly better than average, which makes me think two fouls is a good play for both. Um, so yeah, I like those two. In terms of the prices, McAllister for two fouls is 1.83. I think priced the same on 365 as Paddy Power. Gravenberch is 2.25 for two fouls. I think his price sort of stands out a bit more, um, because you'd sort of expect the two players to be similar. Gravenberch has obviously made more fouls in the league so far, but he plays an identical role to McAllister and will find sort of the same matchup, the same duels, and he plays with the same intensity. So I like the value on offer for Gravenberch. I think it should be close to 1.83. Um, Again, just a lean for now, but good matchup, good data to support it. So I like it. That will be it for the Wolves Liverpool game. I think quite a few decent angles in that one. Moving on to Man United